My name is Jay Chauhan. I am preparing this video on the transfer of shares in a small company, and this video is aimed at both the lawyers who are working in the corporate law, especially young lawyers, and also the clients who deal with lawyers on the issue of the transfer of shares in a smaller company. Now, my background is that I have practiced corporate law for quite a few years and in Richmond, here in Ontario. And we have about 100 companies in the office, and we look after this change of share ownership on a very frequent basis. In the mentorship group program, I noticed that when the new lawyers are coming out of school, there is not sufficient amount of information given to them that can help them transfer the shares. So we'll be doing some seminar out of this topic, which will be a CPD seminar, and hope that you will join. So this video is a very short video to just explain the basic principles of what happens when you transfer the shares. And the main thing that is important for the client to know or the lawyer to know when the shares are being transferred is that the right to transfer the shares and create a new resolution is there of the directors. But usually what happens is that when the shares are being transferred in a small company, those shareholders are usually also directors in the company. Not always, but very frequently. So you have to prepare another resolution of the shareholders who will then accept the resignation of the outgoing directors and elect the new board of directors, which will be the shareholders who are left behind in the company. So it usually ends up being resolutions of the directors to transfer the shares, then the shareholders. But before you transfer, I strongly recommend that you have an agreement of some kind between the two shareholders as to what the terms are. The reason for that agreement is that you want to document not only the parties who are transferring the shares, but also the amount that is being paid for the shares. The reason why the amount is important is because there is a capital gains tax problem when the value of the shares is increased. In a small company, when the amounts are not very large, then and the arrangement appears to be reasonably arm's length, then the tax department will not question. But very important that the lawyer actually tells the client that the accountant has approved the transfer and therefore the arrangement has been accepted by the accountant, and this step should not be skipped. It's important for the lawyer to know, and it's important for the client to know that the lawyer is not taking the responsibility for the tax aspect, because the financial statement is with the accountant and he knows the value and he's going to file the tax return. So one of the important steps that is outside the corporate arena is also consultation with the accountants. You need to create a team effort. In my experience, always the accountant is on his own, and the client comes and runs between the lawyer and the accountant, and you have to create the team spirit between the client, the lawyer, the accountant to carry out this kind of an arrangement. So that's one of the practical problems that you'll have to deal with. One of the biggest mistakes that happens in the mind of the client when you transfer the shares, and recently I did a major company where even the accountant thought that a resolution is sufficient and that's all that the lawyer does and deals with. And as you saw in this discussion, that there are capital gains tax problem. There's a problem of trying to create a new resolution for the shareholders who will appoint new directors, but also a notice to the ministry. Now, the notice to the ministry is a part of the Business Corporations Act, and the company is required to provide a notice within a reasonable time. There's a time limit on it in which you have to tell the ministry that there are new directors and there's a change of the board of directors, because the board of directors take responsibility for the corporate affairs, and if there's delegation, the head office is the location where the parties wishing to serve should be able to find where the company is located. So it's very important that you have a notice, and the notice must be given of the change of the directors. There's no requirement that you tell the ministry who the shareholders are. This is a private record, and if you're filing the tax returns, the accountant will be notifying the ministry as to the dividends, etc. But in terms of the record of the directors is kept in the ministry in University Avenue for people to examine. Now, there are companies that actually provide these records, and the record of the change of directors is very fundamental when you make these changes. So there's a whole sequence. What are the steps? You tell the client to prepare the agreement. If there's a conflict, you must have another lawyer who is on the other side. The lawyer must sign a certificate of independent legal advice. Then you have the documents prepared, the resolutions. You get the parties to sign. Then there is a release from the vendor, or sorry, the person who leaves the company writes a release that is addressed to the company as well as the existing shareholder, to the fact that there are no longer any claims against the company for director's fees, his position as an employee, if any, and the dividends, etc. So this release is very fundamentally important to ensure that the relationship of the outgoing shareholder is terminated, and if there are leases or guarantees, they have to be dealt with. If there are credit cards that are issued in the name of the person on behalf of the company, they should be terminated, etc. So all this thing, how much does it cost? Most people, including the lawyers I saw in my angel mentorship group that I train for the corporate procedures, think wrongly that you only have to prepare the resolution. So it's much more involved. We'll be doing a CPD program out of it. If you have any comments, list it below. And this will be our channel. I hope you'll watch it for legal issues that will affect the lawyers and the public as well. Thank you.